all ideas cross the line. In 1956, Johnny Cash released a song called I Walk the Line. And while singing those words didn't make him loyal, he was a complex character, loyalty is a useful concept in contemplating ideas. And so when you take a topic like day and you write down the things that come to mind when you think about the word day, things that are not distant from it, not foreign from it, that are very close to it, naturally associated with it, you get words like this: lunch, commute, school, factory, office, breakfast, work, blue sky, sun, sunrise. Similarly, if you take a word like night and write down the words that come to mind, depending on what kind of nights you have, you might get words like this: nightclub, stars, nightmare, dreams, sleep, quiet, bedtime, dinner, and sunset. Walking through a topic as most people know it is called linear thinking. So when Johnny Cash is talking about walking the line, he's talking about linear thinking because the word line is hidden in the word linear. Linear is a bit of a big word, but it has that word line in it. And so that's how we make sense of that word. To understand what ideas are, it helps to start with linear thinking, understanding how our brains work to assemble words that are naturally associated with certain topics. Lateral thinking is how ideas happen. So where linear thinking goes down a line of thought, lateral thinking, where lateral is a fancy word for cross or across, lateral thinking crosses topics in unexpected ways. Edward de Bono propagated the use of the words lateral thinking in his influential 1967 book, The Use of Lateral Thinking. And Edward de Bono is one of these characters whose ideas we use in business quite often without necessarily knowing that it was him who had the idea. And some of these ideas are debated. I know that there's the origin of lateral thinking, for example, that as a concept has been debated and other people have claimed it, but Edward de Bono absolutely promoted it. And what lateral thinking is in its simplest form is taking one thing that doesn't usually belong with another thing and putting it together. So topic A, boom, topic B. So if you take a word like sunset and just shove it next to the word factory without doing any fancy footwork, any fancy thinking, now that idea could be an all-glass restaurant perched on a hill where there are the most exquisite sunsets all year round. Okay, that's the idea in a sentence. We've given it a name, which has been convenient because we just pushed the words together, Sunset Factory. And the idea is an all-glass restaurant perched on a hill where there are the most exquisite sunsets all year around. Now, those two words together could lead to many other kinds of ideas. They could make a name for a company that makes blinds, a morgue, a euthanasia assistance firm, a manufacturer of sleep aids, or a melatonin purveyor. And that's just by taking these two words and putting them together and allowing them to stand there, looking at them and saying, how do we make sense of that? Now, if we do the same thing to the word quiet and the word commute, we might end up with the world's quietest commuter train, or the world's quietest train car, or noise-cancelling headphones, or the least noisy sequel to Die Hard, the movie, or a silent car engine. There's still work to be done with all of these things, but just by jamming two words together and insisting that we can make sense of them and that we can make sense of them in a sentence to try to capture the attributes of the idea that are most important, most meaningful, and most specific, that's how ideas happen. And so here's a gauntlet run of concepts at play here, and this underpins nearly everything else that's to come. Linear thinking goes down a line of thought. It stays loyal to a topic. It remains close. Lateral thinking crosses lines of thought. It is disloyal to the topics. It roams far. A lateral thought is an idea. An idea is a useful combination of things that do not usually belong together. Creativity brings together things that do not usually exist together in useful ways. Having an idea is an act of creativity. An idea is an output of an act of creativity. Creativity is lateral thinking. An idea always contains a lateral thought. Linear thinking goes down a line of thought. Lateral thinking crosses lines of thought. The output of lateral thinking is an idea. All of that is the act of creativity. And so if you're in meetings using words like idea, but you're not really combining things that don't usually belong together in novel and useful ways, you're probably just having a thought, and that's totally cool. The onus on you is to then push something unusual into it, which could come from research or just something intuitive, and to try to force out some kind of idea. And I'm insisting that strategy work is not just word work, it's idea work. So that if you're trying to land a clean sentence on a creative brief, for example, that clean sentence will typically house an idea. Two things that don't usually belong together. That idea is not meant to sound like a campaign idea or a social idea or a content idea or whatever idea. And we'll talk about silent adjectives in front of the word idea, but we'll do that later. The main thing with this class is to understand that linear thinking can lead to lateral thinking. So typically you look at a topic, you pull it apart, and then you push things together to see if something new and useful can come out, some kind of lateral thought or idea. So to have ideas, just remember Johnny Cash and Edward de Bono. You do Johnny Cash, then you go Edward de Bono. You look at a topic as you and other people would naturally look at it, write it all down. What comes to mind when you think of topic X? Write it all down. And then think of Edward de Bono. What can you clash that with, cross it with, to create some kind of new meaning in the world, which is what an idea does. So to have ideas, you walk the line, and then you cross the line. I didn't come across these concepts until my late 20s, and it changed my life. It made thinking and ideas so much more accessible, to the point where, having been a few years in the industry, I was like, oh, why didn't I learn this ages ago? And now I often start with it.